Heather Linchenko. Hello. It's wonderful to be here. I was just telling some of these ladies walking in, I've seen this setting from behind you so many times and have been so appreciative of what your group does. You've introduced me to so many wonderful people that I have followed and kept listening to, and it's just wonderful. So I'm just going to get right into this because I'll introduce myself as we go. So the forgotten scriptures. First I want to ask you why you're here. Why do you read books? Why do you listen to podcasts? Why do you come here every week together?
It's lifting and invigorating. It stimulates my thinking and my spirit.
Stimulates your thinking and your spirit. It's lifting. Like what the lesson in the prayer, if we're all seeking the face of God. Seeking the face of God, Lord, and all the things that we've done here help us grow and ascend and learn. Everything helps us grow and ascend. Why do we want to seek the face of God? Why is that? We came here for us to get back. Pardon me? That's what we came here for, is to find our way back. And why?
Why do we want to go back?
So we can be like God. What is the ultimate goal in all of this? Why do we want to see the Lord's face? Why do we want to
become as God is?
Why do we want to be clean as God is?
We love that life and we love Him.
So that we can feel the measure of our creation. So we can have joy.
So we can have worlds beyond our own.
So we can abound. So
Others.
you hit on it. The one I was trying to get someone to say, so that we can have joy. I teach executives these some relationship principles, and I ask them that, and they're so I can make money. Why do you want that? So I can spend time with my family. So why do you want that? And we dig deeper and deeper and deeper until it finally comes out that the goal of it all is so that we can have joy, more joy and less stress. And so that's our litmus test of how we're doing. We want to get that little thing moved over closer and closer to joy. The more joy we have, the less stress we'll have. So now my why. Why am I here? I was administrative assistant to Stephen R. Covey. You guys probably know who he is. 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And I helped him type. I typed this book from transcriptions, and I must have edited it, I don't know, 100 times. He'd send it back to me with arrows and things everywhere on the page. I cleaned it up for him, and we discussed it, and it was just a beautiful experience. This book has sold 40 million copies, and 38 different languages it's been translated into. And then I worked for this man. His name is Douglas T. Snar, and he was kind of locally famous back in the day. He was on the speaking circuit with Art Linkletter and Zig Ziglar. And so I worked for these wonderful thought leaders and helped both of them write books and work together with them and philosophize with them. And it was just a beautiful experience. And this is what my life looked like. It was just smooth. I was going through life, and I thought, I'm patient, and I'm kind, and I get along with everyone, and I have all these great skills. I had a lot of joy, and I was thinking I was kind of on top of the world for a lot of years. Then this man came into my life. He was raised in communist Russia. He was raised in an atheist home. His dad was an alcoholic. I came from a family of 10 children on a farm in Idaho. He didn't have any choice over there. The only choice he had under communism was, there's a line, let's go get in it, because there's going to be something good. I don't even know what it will be. He was, I met him through this Douglas T. Snar boss, and he told me, and they met over in Russia and spent like 4 days together. And he told them how much he loved Russia and how, number one, the world must become more wicked. They're doing their part, he said. Number two, the Lord's people must become more righteous. And this always stuck with me. Well, look what happened to my stress-joy continuum. I was just living all the gospel. I was going to church. I was faithful. I was doing everything, and yet my stress was so high and my joy was so low. I remember once even teaching a lesson in Relief Society. I had convinced my mind that, when men are that they might have joy, it probably just means in the next life. I really lost vision that it was even possible in this life to have joy. My marriage was going well. Some relationships with some kids weren't going well. I didn't feel good about myself. And so this quote is just one of my favorites because it tells why we're doing everything we're doing with that joy. It says, to be happy at home is the ultimate result of all ambition, the end of which every enterprise and labor tends, and of which every desire prompts prosecution. Samuel Johnson. This is why we do what we do. This is why we strive so much to see the face of Christ, so that we can be happy at home. And so this was my journey for the next 30 years. How do I make my way through this relationship maze? I did certain things, and I just kept hitting walls. Things that my parents had handed down to me, and we had good family, productive members of society. But when I tried them, it didn't work. It got me less of what I wanted, not more. And so I spent a lot of years trying to figure out how to get out of this maze. Well, along with all of this study, I read so many books. There was one book that I read. It was John Adams' I think. And I got to the end of that book, and I just had tears streaming down my neck. It was the weirdest thing. I just felt so bonded to him. He had gotten a bad rap from people, but I felt his spirit, and when he died, I mourned him. I actually just cried, and I was so connected to him. And this made me think, I want to feel this regarding other people. And I had been on a mission. I had read Jesus the Christ, so I went to Jesus the Christ with a new intent, that I wanted to feel that connection with him. And so I read it with the same way, and I had tears streaming about that. After reading that, I realized Joseph Smith. I know Joseph Smith is a prophet, but I don't feel a connection to him. I know, but I don't know him. And so I started on a whole bunch of books about Joseph Smith. I think I read 5 or 6 in a row to get that connection with Joseph Smith and to realize who he was as a person. And one of the thing that stuck out the most to me through that study was, he said, all the saints should be praying every single day that they have their calling and election made sure. And I'm like, I have no idea what that is. But I started praying for it. And so I'm saying these words, no idea. And resources started to come to me. And books started to come to me. And I was just enlivened by the Spirit through this information that I was praying for. So next, I wanted to understand Zion. And so I read 5 or 6 books in a row about Zion. I wanted to wrap my head around it. What is it? What is it exactly? So one of the reasons I found through all of this failure was what this represents is everything good we're doing is pushing on the gas. We read books, we come to these places, I knew all this material at Stevens, and that's pushing on the gas. What I didn't know was that I was simultaneously pushing on the brake with lies that were in my head, things I believed that were untrue. And so this became the work of a lifetime, is to figure out what these lies were so that I could remove those brakes and so that I could feel forward progress. I call them negativity traps, untruths we believe that sabotage our efforts and keep our relationships trapped in negativity. So was able to turn the culture around in my family with all of this study and with all of this effort. I changed some things about myself and we had a completely different culture. And then all of a sudden people started coming out of the woodwork asking me. And I felt myself just telling them with confidence. I had really learned a lot of things. And people kept saying, you need to put this in a book. They'd speak in there, write a book. And I had written 2 books and I didn't want to. I needed to work on my health. I needed to work on my weeds. There was a time I actually made a goal. I'm going to go pick the weeds as soon as they get a little higher than the fence. And I was sitting there riding, watching the weeds go up. And as soon as they got above the fence line, I went and spent 2 days and weeded everything. But really, there was a lot of things that I was neglecting. And so it got impressed upon me. God gave me an assignment to do this book. And I couldn't get any peace. And so I finally gave in. And I was pushed to the point that I took money out on my home, used equity to live on, so that I could write this book full time. There was some kind of an urgency behind it that I didn't understand. Another thing I want to say is that the Lord put Zion in my heart, really before I even knew what it was. I remember praying many times, and I'd bring up the word Zion, and I would feel just ache and tears, and I'm like, where is this coming from? This is not coming from me. But I had this ache and this yearning for Zion that was divine. It was not coming from me. And so that this too felt like an assignment. So before we start, I just want to ask you a few questions. So one of the things is, would you expand your hope? And by that I mean, whatever happened before today is gone and doesn't matter. This is a new page. It's a bright new page. This is a little bit of an unpopular subject, sadly. And it's a little bit daunting to talk about what I'm going to talk about today. And so I just want us to, and I also want to see if you'll increase your participation, which means if I ask a question, answer it loud and clear in your mind. Because there's something that happens, there's something really magical that happens with answering a question, making a decision. So when I was 16, I was in a young women class, and the young women leader said, the lesson was on prayer. And so she asked us if we would pray for an hour. And she said, I want you to answer loud and clear in your head. I don't want to know, but I want you to know what you said. Will you commit to pray for an hour? And I said yes in my head. And then the class was over. I'd gone to church my whole life. Church was over, I went on with my life. But having made that decision, I couldn't go on with my life. It was like someone put a pebble in my shoe that I had to walk with. And it maybe took me a year to follow through on that commitment. But because it had tied into my integrity, I eventually did that. I eventually went into the closet and I prayed everything I could possibly think of. And I looked at my watch and it was like 10 minutes. Oh no. And so I'm like, okay, well, I'm thankful for my eyes, I'm thankful for my ears, I'm thankful for, that I have hair and I'm not bald. I mean, I just went on and on and on, the same things. Thankful for this house, blah, 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 blah. I looked at my watch and it had been like 25 minutes. And then I started just saying, God, this is just so stupid. How am I supposed to pray for an hour? And at some point, I made a connection with God. It's the first time in my life I ever had. And then I was praying for these things with real gratitude. He was giving me what to pray. And I was connecting with him, and it was so beautiful. It was the first time ever. And I looked at my watch, and it was after an hour. And that's the magic. That's the magic of that decision. And so a lot of times when we go to things, we take notes. And someone told me once, taking notes is a trick to avoid making a decision. And I found that to be true. I take notes, I get so inspired, I put them aside, I wouldn't do anything with it. And then I find the notes, I get so inspired again, why am I not doing anything with this? And so forth. So one decision, just one decision is worth all the notes in the world you can take as far as getting that traction moving forward. So, now as I read all these books. One of them was Hugh Nibley, Approaching Zion. It's like a 600, 700 page book. And I just underlined everywhere. And here's what he said. All my life I have shied away from these disturbing and highly unpopular, even offensive themes. But I cannot do so any longer because in my old age I have taken to reading the scriptures and there have had them forced upon my reluctant attention. So I took this book and I took all of it, changed me to such an extent, all of these books in a row, that I redid it. I retyped everything that was in the book that I had underlined and reduced it to 16 pages so I could share it with my children and with other people. Because I didn't know how many people would actually go read a 600-page book. So I really relate to this, having things forced upon your reluctant attention. This happened to me too. I learned through this that read does not equal search. It's a completely different word. But for some reason, all I heard when I read scriptures, went to church, all I ever heard was read. And then regularly, that was my goal, regularly reading the scriptures. Read regularly. And what the scriptures say is search diligently. Completely different thing. Reading, you get to something, you're like, I don't understand that. Oh well, and you move on. And searching, you're like, oh wait, why is it saying that we will become the sons of God? You know, I thought we were the sons of God. And we have to search to find those answers, or things just go over our heads. We have to just really dig in and figure it out. If God tells us to do something, He provides a way to accomplish it. So, I need to give you the bad news first. So, I do a lot of mentoring, helping couples, helping parents and kids, and teaching executives. And we get in these sessions, and people become very vulnerable and start admitting some of the struggles they're having. And so, what I have seen is kind of a really broad scope of what's going on even within God's people. And so, again, if this touches a nerve with you, realize that this is not about any individual. This is about our fallen condition. I'm going to tell you 11 little short stories of things that I have seen. Just these came to my mind out of thousands. And I'm in these stories. I made hundreds of them myself. So, brace yourself. How I read the scriptures. Behold, as you are desirous to bring forth Zion and to be called His people at the last day, and are willing to, pay your tithing, accept every calling, attend church faithfully, read your scriptures daily, pray often, participate in service, attend the temple as circumstances permit, understand the signs of the times, study the deeper mysteries. Then you will be numbered among God's people. And wouldn't that be great if that were true? Oh my goodness, I wish that were true. And so I said, yay! Oh wait, what? Not so? Cruise out. I'm in trouble. What about this? If you also speak with the tongues of angels, have the gift of prophecy, understand all mysteries, have all faith so that you can remove mountains, bestow all your goods to feed the poor, give your body to be burned. Guys, these are no small feats. Then you will be numbered among God's people. Oh, wait. Still not it. What am I missing? So I want to see what you guys come up with of all the things the Savior ever said, of every scripture you've ever read, of every podcast. What if you had to encapsulate the gospel in just a few words, what would those words be?
Charity never faileth.
Say again?
Love God, love others.
Love God, love others. Well, what about, I was loving
Yourself.
I was loving others, but I still had so much stress. I still had so many relationship problems. So there must be something more.
You need to find joy in stress,
Find joy in the stress.
because stress is what keeps
Yeah, oh, I love it.
The muscle.
collapsing.
Yeah, I love it. He's saying joy in the stress because of the growth that comes from it.
What's higher than love is trust. If we didn't trust God, then we couldn't exercise even love and love for ourselves, others, neighbors, ourselves. But I think in our own journeys, like I've really been thinking about authenticity lately, because just like with your prayers, like what is blocking me from really surrendering everything, really going there, ongoing. And I think when we get those pain points, and it triggers things that we want to work through them, and we know those patterns are there they're not our fault all the time, but it's still difficult to navigate, knowing the tough and tender love balance with each person, or enabling as a Christ-like human being that wants to help others versus getting used.
Yeah, that's so true. After I had kind of gone through all of this, and I'm like, what's going wrong, God? I saw in the Year of My God Today one time when I was at church, and it said, by our cross he lifts us, because that's what happened to me. The more I failed, the deeper I tried to get into scriptures, the more things I did, and it just lifted me to him. So the pain really does have a wonderful purpose. Well, the two words that I chose for the gospel that come down to gospel of Jesus Christ in a nutshell: be one. Be one. And my personal favorite, satisfy the afflicted soul. To me, that encapsulates the whole gospel. This is in Isaiah 58, I think, satisfy the afflicted soul. And it's talking about hunger. And I think to myself, we all have hunger that's not related to food. And so I'm thinking, anyway, someone's hungry. Hungry to be understood. Hungry to have a close relationship. Do we satisfy that soul? Because Jesus does that. That is the ultimate goal. And also, be one or you are not mine. I think that is one of the forgotten phrases of Scripture. We know we're supposed to be one, but if we're not one, we still think we're God's. So that's the question we ask ourselves is, as God's people, how are we doing? How are we doing when you look around at those two things? Are we becoming more one? Or are we getting more estranged? As problems happen, do we distance ourselves emotionally from each other to survive it? That's the question. Did you have something to say?
Do you think the afflicted soul could be you?
Yes. Yes. Oftentimes it's us, whoever it is. That's why when we love others as ourselves, our afflicted soul has to be taken care of as well as someone else's afflicted soul. That is so true. And we can't be one without both happening, right? So now I'm going to go, here's a quote. The truth will set you free, but first, it will shatter your illusions. Just remember, it is never the truth that is painful. It is the destruction of the falsehood you have become attached to and mistaken for truth. For those new to this, we've been there. We get it. And so this is what happened to me. Like, I was attached to so many falsehoods that were pushing on the brakes of all my efforts. And if you're in a relationship and you're trying all these things, but you've got the brakes on, you get out of gas. And you haven't gone anywhere. It's emotionally draining. It's like stressful. It's a lot of drama, but you're not getting out of your relationship driveway. So we're gonna try and shatter these illusions, which I hope isn't too painful. So this was a man that went to my training, and he said, "Your training changed my life. I want to help you take this training to the world. But I suggest we don't begin in this area. People in the world know that relationships take work, but people in the church think that their covenants, prayers, and temple going will take care of everything. That was kind of a really big shock to hear, and it made me sad, but I realized that's probably true. So again, I'm going to share 11 little stories, things that really happened. Some of them, I'm the one that did it. And again, this is not to anyone particular. This is the human condition. A text. Would you please tell me specifically what you've heard spoken about so-and-so, the owner of this business? What was said planted a rather useless seed. Can either throw it out or investigate it further. Would really appreciate it to see if her name can be cleared. She'll never know where it came from. XOXO, no need. I am feeling the need. I will not engage. You are loved. I don't know what you heard, but it didn't come from me. There's absolutely nothing to say. It's okay to tell someone to have a pray about it. Engage is an interesting word choice. So is the exclamation point. It leaves me scratching my head. I'm super worried about you. I will send love and prayers your way. I will respectfully block you until you have something else to interest you. This happened to me, and this person was her countenance was always so warm and sweet with me. And I had no idea she had anything against me, but she did. She held something really, still don't know to this day what it was. But I found out through this. Okay, so one person ignores communications, avoids dealing with issues, brings homegrown eggs as a gesture of love. And so this was the text response. If it's me you're trying to make feel better by bringing the eggs, I would much prefer you're just answering my questions. The eggs brought in lieu of responding is hard on me. It makes me feel ignored, sidestepped, disrespected. This one, the mother says, well, of course I'm safe. Don't be ridiculous. Of course you can talk to me about anything. And the daughter says, as if I wouldn't know whether I felt safe or not. So this particular story, the mother sent care packages to the daughter who was on a mission. And the companions noticed that she just threw them to the side. She hardly opened them. She didn't care about them at all. It was almost like junk mail. And everything the mother was doing was noble and beautiful. But it wasn't hitting the mark for the daughter. It wasn't satisfying her soul. What she wanted was a close relationship with her mother, that she felt supported and loved and known. And when she tried to make that relationship with her mother, this is what her mother said. As she's telling me this story, she's like earns over six figures. She's a grown woman. And she had tears just streaming when she said, as if I wouldn't know whether I felt safe or not. And so her soul was not being satisfied by her mother, even though her mother was making wonderful efforts. I have felt strong promptings that I should be involved in trying to be a peacemaker and hopefully decrease contention within the family. It's an actual quote. But his way to decrease contention was not to take in new viewpoints, was to force compliance through voice of authority and legal language. The result wasn't good on the relationship, even though his aim was really good. He wanted to stop the contention, and he thought he just squelched it. Didn't listen to anyone. So, some brothers regularly updated $1 million homes and cabins, while their sisters struggled indefinitely to meet their family's needs due to being widowed, divorced, health issues, or what have you. I see this very common. Mother gathering cans for a food drive. Let's see, expiring yams, peas, mushrooms, whatever I don't really love. The daughter, little, probably 8 years old, suggested the fancy berries, these big, expensive fancy berries. And she said, just think of how exciting it will be for people to get berries. If they're needing food, their lives must be really hard. Maybe the berries will cheer them up. So this little girl had the Zion mindset. She's looking at it from the other perspective. I have forgiven you. What is needed is change. What is most needed here is a peacemaker. I won't be responding to any more of this dialogue. Now, if we keep in mind that being one and satisfying the afflicted soul is our goal, then we won't be cutting people off who want to talk to us and work things through. Would it be all right with you if, do you not remember you made a rule that you can't ask, even if it's your stupid rule, but somehow it doesn't apply to you? She responds with a heart. That is meaningless to me. Why don't you take responsibility and speak to the point? Not working, can you say counterproductive? I want to say all of these people I specifically chose from people who are very, very active in the gospel, state presidents, bishops, Relief Society presidents. I mean, this is like people who really want to do what's right, and they believe they're doing what's right. And so that's why it's so important that we keep that ultimate goal in mind as we make our decisions how to do things. I heard that you and your daughter are estranged. I'm so sorry. Well, it's her loss. And so, but go on and do the church work and let that rest. And so that there's a disconnect. Can you see that there's a disconnect? Sometimes I ask Heavenly Father if the four of us can sit down and understand one another in the next life, because relationships are so important. And the person that was in this one said, that's a deception, not scriptural, not spoken of by any prophet or found in any conference talk. Our responsibility is to fix it here, or we won't likely be going where he is. It was never fixed, because this person's thinking it can be done later. All right, so here's a little 1-minute video.
My Bose wasn't on,
Oh, okay.
or it won't come through.
Never truly get to the bottom of
Back it up.
dysfunctional families, sweep problems under the rug. One of the hallmarks of a dysfunctional family is they never truly get to the bottom of problems and conflicts. One of the reasons this happens is because they would rather have dishonest harmony than honest conflict. Usually they are uncomfortable with honest conflict, and they would rather just ignore the problems and pretend they don't exist. This creates shallow and superficial relationships between the family members, and there's this fake energy in the air when that happens as well. Another thing that will happen is when someone does try to bring up an issue, they will treat that person like they're the problem, and then blame them and say, you should just get over it, this person's family. Because often issues get in the way of the image they have of the ideal family. So they would rather shut it down and pretend like it doesn't exist to have dishonest harmony.
So one of the things that I went and read the comments underneath this, I was surprised by how almost viral it went. And then I read through the comments, and everyone's like, I've got chills, you just described my family. You know, or oh, that happened to me, I tried to, change out of the dysfunctional patterns, and I became the black sheep. Yes.
You also just described Sunday school.
This
This is how we run the gospel.
Yes, I agree with you.
We don't talk real.
And that's why I really, really love what you said about authenticity. Authenticity is just, how can we get to love unfeigned without authenticity, without working problems through and satisfying the afflicted souls in our life? And we're not going to do it well at first, because just like we can't ski well the first time or type well the first time, we will make mistakes. But the Lord's plan is a plan of mistakes. He allows these mistakes, and so that our learning can be genuine, so that we go beyond seeming to actually being and embodying Christ-like qualities.
Dysfunctional families, sweep problem.
There we go. Okay, so again, this is how I read the scriptures. If thou bring thy gift to the altar, and there rememberest that thy brother hath aught against thee, or you have aught with them they're unaware of, sweep these problems under the rug. Be the bigger person. Bring double your gifts to the altar, and all will be well. This is why I call them the forgotten scriptures, because this is how the scripture actually reads. If thou bring thy gift to the altar, and there rememberest thy brother hath aught against thee, or you have aught with them they're unaware of, leave there thy gift before the altar, and go thy way. First be reconciled to thy brother, and then come and offer thy gift. How I read the scripture, verily I say unto you, inasmuch as ye have done it unto your spouse, child, sibling, parent, aunt, neighbor, mother-in-law, employee, waiter, or enemy, I understand that this is in no wise means that you treat me this way. But it actually says, verily I say unto you, inasmuch as ye have done it unto one of the least of these my brethren, you have done it unto me. And we like to think of the least of these as people we don't know, people that can't touch our pride, people on the street, but we all have least of these people in our life. That's the least of these that I think we really need to be focusing on. Now for the good news. Oh, sorry, that's kind of rough. Truth never disappoints. It never disappoints. I heard this little phrase, I think it was from Todd McLaughlin or something like that. I'm like, ooh, I love that phrase, I'm going to steal it. But I had noticed that every time I submitted my pride, submitted something to the Lord, life didn't get harder. After I got over that bump, it got easier every single time. It never disappoints. And so my joy through this practice of trying to satisfy those afflicted souls completely turned the culture in my home around. I became a completely different person. And I realized joy is for this life too. And I still have plenty of problems. Like you say, I still have plenty of problems. But change in focus that I had. Instead of feeling satisfied, if I thought something was right, I would try to approach it from the other person's point of view. And just, I call it the long walk. We go out of ourselves and we go get in their body and realize what it must be like on their side. And so I did this with my children, and the problems, I had time on my hands, so much time. When people would talk about how teenagers are and everything, I'd be like, I don't relate to that. I have nothing to add to the conversation. And the relationships were really, really satisfying in a way that I'd never experienced before. So good news, working out will make you feel weak when it's actually making you stronger. Learning new things will make you feel dumb when it's actually making you feel smarter. Investing in yourself will make you feel broke when it's actually making you rich. So investing in other people is going to feel like we're losing something, but it's going to pay back. It's going to have really big dividends that will shock and awe us. And so another piece of good news is Zion is no mystery. It's very, very well defined. There are two principal aspects of it. And the Lord called his people Zion because they were of one heart and one mind, and dwelt in righteousness, and there was no poor among them. So those two things. So here are some scriptures that I just pulled on one heart and mind. Hearts knit together in unity and love. Just take a look at those for a minute. There are a lot of them, and then there's another slide full of them, and this was just right off the top. They're all through the scriptures. And let me point out, more that those that more, you have to have some kind of a relationship for them to give you their inner world. Or they'll just put something there that you can't get to them. And so the relationship needs to be good enough that they will feel safe sharing with you so that you can mourn with them, so that you can comfort them. No poor among them. It is not given that one man should possess that which is above another, wherefore the world lieth in sin. I think this is a forgotten scripture. If you are not equal in earthly things, you cannot be equal in obtaining heavenly things. There's some really great phrases. Neither was there any among them that lacked. It's open your hand wide. Sometimes we think open our hand, and we don't, and we miss the word wide. Because we need that security. Our security isn't in the Lord as much as it could be, to be able to do this more than we're doing it. And Zion cannot be built up unless it is by the principles of the law of the celestial kingdom. Otherwise I cannot receive her unto myself. And then this scripture, For God speaketh once, yea twice, yet man perceiveth it not. These scriptures somehow just remain absolutely hidden. And I think it's because we're reading them like, oh, I did this, I did all of this good, and it's true, it's all good. But to just remember the point behind every one of those things is to be one, so that we can be ready for Zion. Hugh Nibley in his book, this is how he boiled down the celestial law. We should not look only to the needs of our immediate family, nor increase our personal holdings. Rather, we should keep for ourselves only that which is sufficient for our needs. I found this very fascinating because we hear that elsewhere. And share the remainder of our worldly wealth liberally and impartially in the interest of others, even the whole world, seeing all people as one single family, counting their needs and wants as highly as our own, and never asking if they deserve it. Our interests and theirs should be as one, and we should work jointly, having all things in common. Now, I think this is good news, really good news. I was so excited when I saw this. Joseph Smith in the Journal of Discourses, the celestial law is one of the last revelations which people will receive into their hearts and understandings. It's like that pinnacle. It's like the pinnacle. And I was so excited because doesn't it feel like we have lives upon lives upon lives to eventually become, something that God will really approve of. And this is the last one. And so it's really fun to work on it, knowing that, right? So Heber C. Kimball, I'm just going to share I think 2 more quotes. In these, I underlined the parts that are the blessings. The blessings that are being withheld, basically, until we start getting this right. Some of the people may drop many big tears, but if they cannot learn wisdom by precept nor by example, they must learn it by what they suffer. I wish to God this people would all listen to counsel and move as one man and be one. If this were the case, now listen, our enemies would never have any more power over us. Our granaries would never be empty, nor would we see sorrow. Brigham Young, are those who have been in the church 20, 25, or 30 years prepared to have the visions of eternity open to them? No. Instead of being united in our feelings to build up all, each one takes his own course, whereas if we were united, we would get rich 10 times faster than we do now. How are you going to bring the people to that point where they will all be united in the things of this life? By no other means than prevailing upon them to live their religion, that they all may possess the Holy Ghost. Here's the gifts. This is what we're after in trying to find the Lord's face. We possess the Holy Ghost, the spirit of revelation, the light of Christ, which will enable them to see eye to eye. And so then we don't want to put off living this law, right, until the church says, okay, time to get all your money. Because then we're putting off the blessings. And we actually do covenant in the temple to do this. And so we can bring those blessings upon at least our family, if we can live it, if we can become Zion, have a Zion mindset, and teach our children. I remember when I started having some of these epiphanies, I started a text group with my kids, and I said, I've taught you wrong! and let me just try and undo what I've done. And I sent them quotes, I sent them everything, and I encouraged them to undo the old mindset that I had passed down to them. And they have a Zion mentality with each other. So much more than I ever had, until I was like 50 or something, so it's really exciting. We really can spread these within our families. More good news. This is after the manner of happiness. This is that joy that we're trying to get after in this life. And they were not rich and poor, and the Lord did prosper them exceedingly. We kind of feel like if we give some of our money, we're left. Here it goes back to, it feels different than it's going to turn out. And surely there could not be happier people among all the people who had been created by the hand of God. There were no manner of ites, meaning there weren't people on one side and the other side. Even if we don't call ourselves by different names, we're ites sometimes in our families. That I remember one lady said her daughter was on a mission but wouldn't write her, and she was kind of kicked out of the family. because she divorced the dad, and there were definite ites in that family. For how blessed were they, for the Lord did bless them in all their doings. Okay, so I want to tell you a story about John Huntsman because this is so illustrative of a Zion mindset. I just love this story. So when he was first married, he and his wife were just so poor. He was going to school. They had their money meticulously budgeted, and he had $1.47 for lunch. And so he noticed his neighbor had less. And so he every day would walk to his school or work or whatever it was and drop $1.47 in that guy's mailbox, and he went without lunch. So it's a mindset. It's anybody can have a mindset. And then he grew. I'm thinking maybe this was some of the secret to his wealth, because he grew this tremendous amount of wealth. And so this is another lesson in there. You can't judge people with a lot of wealth. Maybe God wanted him to gain that wealth so that he could do something big, like do the cancer center, or put a water system in some, third world country place. I mean, people do need to amass wealth. I think of Martin Harris had that money. He could solve a problem just like that. So it's not for us to judge. It's just for us to try and cultivate that mindset within our own mind. So when we learn something new, what I want to do is find what lies do I have in my head that are stopping me moving at it. And so, what is in your head stopping you from becoming one, for example? Any thoughts?
Having expectations.
Expectations? Keeps you from having those communications?
Just needing someone else to come to a certain place before we're ready to connect.
Yeah. Well, and one thing that I tell couples and people that I mentor is you can't get past unwillingness. Any relationship can overcome flaws. I don't care how flawed your relationship is, there's plenty of hope. It's when there's unwillingness, sometimes you can't move forward.
If you have a negative self-image, sometimes you think, well, I can't help them. I can't lift anybody up to where I'm at because I'm at the bottom.
Negative self-image.
And yet, I was thinking about your story about John Huntsman, So many of us are rich spiritually.
Yeah.
And we need to share that with others.
Yeah. I love that. Rich spiritually, we need to share with others. That's so true. I remember that I could see this one lesson. I could see like the rich and the poor within families and people really struggling. And then I realized I was holding on to all sorts of clothes in my closet. I am like, oh, that's a really good piece of clothing. I didn't wear it. I didn't care about it. But I was holding it like it's savings account or something in case I needed it.
I got it
there
on
we
sale.
go.
I got it on sale. I don't want to get
I got it on sale, and it's beautiful. Look at the fabric or whatever, and I was holding it. I was doing exactly the same thing. So honestly, it was a shock. I went, oh wow, it really is so easy to judge others and still be doing the same things in our own lives. So I really love that. One is the fear of contention, I think, that keeps us from working things through. I had a neighbor that was from another religion, and she was labeled by our whole neighborhood as argumentative. She would march over the street mad about something, about me or my kids, and we'd work it out. Sometimes it would take a couple of hours. She'd hold my hands and we'd pray, and then we'd just go at it and try and get this figured out. And I just feel so incredibly blessed that I knew her and that I didn't say, you're argumentative, you're out of my mind. Because what I learned from her was becoming one. It was the first relationship I'd ever had that was completely safe. Her countenance was always accurate. And I had other neighbors that their countenance was beautiful toward me, but then I'd find out they're talking bad about me. And I love it. There's such safety in it. authenticity in that countenance that's accurate. And what I learned from that is that we became one. Every time there was a difference and we worked it through, there was learning. And so that's what I tell people. Whenever there's negativity anywhere, it means there's something to be learned. And so if you go into it, what am I going to learn? What nugget am I going to get? It's either usually a very small change in behavior or a mindset shift. Just looking at it from a little bit different view, we're like, oh, and then we've learned something, we've expanded. The Godhead, they get along. They're someone that can be in business together, and it's because they've got all knowledge. So if we shut down these opportunities to learn, then we're not growing as fast as we could be learning. So anyway, and what I discovered from this friendship was that it was not a job to do service for her. I just wanted to, you try and stop me from helping you. We had, our hearts were knit together in love. And from that process, and it was beautiful. So I'm going to ask you this question. I want you to answer it loud in your head. Will you spend time pondering and deciding specific ways you can approach a Zion mentality more than you are right now? Just a step. Say yes or no, nice and loud. All right, so E1. So this tree represents like the breaks. We're told like that the fruits in the last days, a lot of them won't be good. From the covenant people, there were many fruit, but a lot of it not good. And I think that comes from the root system that we're operating from, and the trunk. And so I want to share with you some of these mind shifts that will make the fruits much more easy to get. So the core paradigm shift I call the root system. And it's shifting from convenient influence, I use this because I can, to relational influence. I practice this because I understand its power. So convenient influence, for example, might be the voice of authority because you're the parent. You can, or because you're tall, you can influence people because of your height, your size, your personality, your wealth. These are convenient types of influence that we can use it, so we do. If we realize, hey, even though I have the authority as a parent, I can shift over to relational influence and practice it because that's where the power is. That's where we satisfy the imperfect soul. So this is very well illustrated from this little fable. Aesop tells the fable of the battle between the north wind and the sun, seeing which was stronger. The north wind, pointing to a man walking through the countryside wearing a coat, said to the sun, I bet I'm so strong I can blow that coat right off of him. The north wind blew and blew, and the stronger it blew, the more tightly the man clung to his coat. The sun said, now you've had your chance, now it's my turn. The sun shone down on the man, quietly, gently, and warmed him up. Pretty soon the man began to feel a little too warm, and he took his coat off and got his coat. So there's the difference between convenient and relational influence. It's convenient is the power one yields to get what they want. The goal is to make someone do something. You got to do the dishes. That's your goal. Often uses compulsory means, and there's often resistance. People don't trust it. Does not improve, or don't like it. Does not improve trust or safety. It's not relationship friendly. Where relational influence takes longer, or so is the trick. We think a power that results in getting what you want most, that results in it. So you're going to make someone want to do something rather than to make them do something. No compulsory means, resistance free, almost. The goal is to cause someone to want to do something. People will love you for it. It deepens that trust you're talking about, safety and joy. So basically the lesson here is slow is fast, fast is slow. One of the day-long presentations I did with some group of executives, the woman gave one of the executives gave this feedback. This is my biggest takeaway from the training. forced compliance creates no unity. I just said it off the cuff, and that just got her to the core, because she didn't have unity, but she had forced compliance. And life will teach us that, right? Life will teach us that. We realize. So relational influence is the only type of influence that brings the kind of joy that lasts. The only type that can't be taken away from us by circumstance. In other words, you can lose your position, you can lose your wealth. You can lose your height, and now you've got a teenager and you can't get them to do anything because they're bigger than you now. The only type that on our deathbed will care about having. So the great secret is not having bad manners or good manners, but having the same manners for all human souls. If we don't have any convenient authority to pull from, we're really good. We have really good skills. It's when we have something that we just are, like it's Satan tempts us to use that instead of the other things. So this is really fun news. It can be very easily fixed. I'm getting in my quickest, easiest way to fix this problem. So this just represents the different kind of relationships in your life. You might have great ones. You might have some that look great, but they're not, because the countenance isn't accurate. You might have some that look bad, but they're not. They just look bad. So I'll show you what I mean here in a second. This is just from my training with the executives at the negativity traps that keep the water from feeding the tree and getting the good fruit. So this is the relationship number. There's a slide coming up you can take a screenshot of. And this is how you find out what your relationship influence is. You ask 2 questions, you get 2 answers, and you get 2 solutions. So here's the questions. You get the people in your life, like your children, your church people you work closely with, who you just get a list of people, you go to them and you say, on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the best, how valued do you feel by me? Second question, on a scale of 1 to 10, how safe do you feel with me to share anything you're thinking or feeling? So now you've got 2 numerical answers from a person, and then you say, would you tell me one thing in each category I could start or stop doing that would raise those numbers? And I did do this with executives. They do it with their employees, and one executive said, we paid so much money trying to get good feedback, and he said, this worked way better. And he said he went in a fetal position afterward because his employees all gave him the same feedback, and he knew exactly what he needed to change to make them feel better about him as an employer.
Go back to that for a second, because I don't understand how asking that. I can't remember your question, but aren't you going to get that false peace? I can think of some people in my life that would be, stop speaking truth to me and I will like you better.
Yes. Well, we have our teenagers that would say, just quit telling me what to do all the time, right?
Right.
And so what you could say back in that circumstance is as you let, here we have to, our own afflicted soul, we have to satisfy ourselves too. And so I just say, as your mother, I need to be feeling like I'm a good mother to you. So tell me how I can do that in a way that would be encouraging.
It would have to have trust. Or was this anonymous?
No, it's not anonymous. So let me tell you one story. Remember the first guy that said changed his life? Well, he did this, and his son was like, I don't know, swearing the F words. It's just tumultuous, terrible relationship. And he asked his son, on a scale of 1 to 10, and he gave him an 8.5. He felt valued at an 8.5, even though the relationship felt so terrible. So this was very encouraging to the father. He thought, I love this getting through. When he asked the next question, his son was flippant because there wasn't trust. And so the son's, what could I do to make you feel more safe? He said, buy me lollipops and Capri Suns. Now, the father, to his credit, didn't say, look, being a pop-off, this is a serious question I'm asking you. He went out and he got Capri Suns and lollipops, this huge collection of them, and just gave the son a steady supply of them. And he said it absolutely changed everything in their home, this one little activity. And he said he had a habit, he'd say, love you, son. And his son wouldn't say anything back. But to his friends, he always said, love you, love you, love you. But never to his parents. After a few weeks of just this little thing, his dad said, love you, son. And the son said, love you, Dad. Like, wait, I'm not supposed to be saying this. And he said, over 3 months of this, and I said, did you ask him again? What's the next thing I can do? And the next thing was, he would take me golfing with you sometimes. And so people will guide us in how to get that relationship better. And it would have to be in alignment with our conscience, of course. If it isn't, then say, you know, how can I do this that it would actually be a good thing for you? Is there any way, you know? We can learn a lot from just using the people in our life as guides.
Even a 45-year-old daughter.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely.
Even your husband.
Yeah, even the husbands, I mean, everybody. I have had a lot of executives that say, oh, I forgot to even put my parents on the list. Because they were so estranged. That it just became not even an issue anymore. You know, I always say hate is very, very close to love. It's really close. And so if you hate each other, you're not far away. If you're indifferent, then your relationship's in trouble. That's harder to overcome. So here's the little chart you can take a picture of that'll help you remember if you want to do this. How valued, how safe, 2 answers, 2 solutions.
Can you take that back?
Oh, sure, excuse me.
We're technologically challenged.
There was one executive that said he got an 8.5 from his wife, and he came and slammed the table. 8.5? I thought I had a 12. You know, he was mad, and the daughter had a higher number. She was more safe with her daughter than she was with her husband, and he thought, you know. I said, well, maybe it has something to do with the reaction you just gave. that you're not quite at a 10. But anyway, this is very doable. Can you see how doable this is? One little thing at a time. We don't have to embody Zion in a day. The Lord doesn't care if we've been working one day or 1 hour or all day. He'll pay us the same. We just need to be working toward it, toward the 10s. This is the goal. The goal is to have all 10s. My daughter, I mean, our relationship is so bad, so bad. I mean, I had the old ways, you know, okay, I'm taking your friends, okay, I'm taking your grounded, okay, I'm taking your music, okay, I'm taking your door. I actually took your door off. And I got nowhere except her withdrawing from me. With her autonomy, she's like, I mean, some kids will get under your unrighteous dominion and just be smart, you know. They're like, okay, let's just do it. Let's just, you know, and then we'll do what we want when they're not watching. And so this is the way to get people to do what you want when you're not watching. A lot more, because the relationship is in place. So when we get our relationships,
Is this in your book, someone just said?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. This second one is, here's the trunk. So now we've got this relational thing as our foundation. So now going up the trunk, there's 3. This first one is what I call flat thinking. I see things detached from the whole. To priority thinking, I see things as they relate to the whole. So I'll show you what I mean. In order to really grasp this one, you have to know this truth. And really believe it. There's an upside and a downside to everything. There's an upside to drugs. There's an upside to swearing at your parent. There's a downside to, seeking the face of Christ. There's upsides and downsides. Sometimes they're counterfeits. But anytime anyone does something, it's because there's an upside to it. You're getting something out of it. And so generally what we do, I'm just going to show you this. You can see clearly his upside. He sees it so clearly in his mind. But he's not noticing there's a downside to it. But we can see it very clearly looking on, can't we? So there's an upside and a downside to everything we do. So flat thinking, I equate it with a toggle switch. The paradigm is good is what I want, bad is what I don't want. I don't want that, I'm going to run from it. That's the thought process. Do I want it? We do this, we make pro and con. Should we do this? All meetings are like this. Should we do this? And then you have people shutting down an idea and pushing an idea, and it just wastes time. So the criteria, decisions are made by running to or from something. They are affected by mood, circumstance, audience, ego, etc. The result is flip-flopping. We're on this, we're over here one day and we're saying something different the next. Gridlock, negativity. Priority thinking, think of it as a totem pole. So never would you say, should we do this? You would say, which should we do? And make sure you can always have at least two things on your totem pole. Decisions are based on values. This is what makes it easier to get to Christ, because everything you look at the upsides together, which one develops a Christ-like nature more in you? Then you put that as your winner, your totem winner, and then you look at the downsides and say, are these downsides worth the upsides? If you don't look at the downsides and emotionally feel them, you will flip-flop, most likely. It'll be new information. Oh, what, I had to pay for that? I don't know, maybe I don't want it. So if you think, okay, I have to pay something, that's the downside. Is it worth it? And you can make those decisions. Okay, sorry we have to flip through these, you guys, so fast. I would love to have a lot more. When I work with the executives, we have a lot of collaboration. I know that this setting isn't the best for that, but we can do questions afterward. So here's the second. Do you have any questions about that? About that one? Okay. So this one is we move from intent to outcome as our goal. Intent, I meant well. My book, I didn't bring it in, I have it in the car. It's called I Meant Well, and other words that heal relationships. If we mean well, then we will defend what we're doing. And if we can shift that to the outcome, and just we can learn to be effective. So here's a little story I used to illustrate. This man, he has very good intent to wire the house. Good heart, educated, caring, he has the skill. Now, what if, so his goal is to wire it right. What if the light doesn't turn on? What if he wires our whole house and there's one light that won't turn on? What if he said, I meant well, I wired it right, I put this little thing next to this little thing, and I twisted it, I know I did it right. But the light doesn't go on. But I did well. Like, what if we did that with customers? We'd lose customers. But our children, our spouses, our families, they're our customers. We want them, like you say, we want them to take the truth that we have to teach them. We want them to adopt our wisdom. We are selling things to our kids. And if we think about it in terms of, hey, if I'm a retail owner, I'm not going to say, you change. And I meant well, so you got to change your perception about it. We would say, okay, we got to get more creative, we got to get better window dressings, and we do more on our own. So
Can I just say what? My husband and I had a property management business. We hired someone to linoleum a kitchen. And we didn't know he wasn't very good. And he came in and laid it down, he could scrape all the old stuff. So you could see ripples all over. We were horrified. We said, I'm sorry, but we're not paying you for that. We had to rip it up. And he was mad. He says, yes, but I did the work.
yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, but you didn't do it right. I'm not paying you.
Your light wasn't going on.
Right.
You had those negative.
But he honestly, truly could not understand.
Yeah.
But I worked for you and I did work.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, you're not getting paid.
Yeah.
You're getting paid.
Okay, so, and you're not going to go back. You're never going to use him, you're never going to
Yeah.
recommend him. His relationship influence just plummeted because he cared more about what he did than how it made you feel. So,
Or it didn't work. Yeah.
so here's the change of focus. We change our focus from what we think and feel about what we did. Oh, I feel good about what I did, to what was the effect of what I did? How is the light turning on? Like here's an example. You do something you mean well, and your child's body language will just you know, and I remember once I'm like, what, did I just discourage you? No, it's okay, Mom. You know, I can tell by that body language. I'm like, no, I can see I discouraged you. You know, what, can you tell me how I could have done that in a way that would have been encouraging? And so they told me, and I did it that way. And then the light went on. So it's a change of focus in what we're doing to how we're doing the what. How is important, and we can get that information from the people we're working with. You know, oh, did I offend you? Tell me what I did. I want to know. I want to do that better. Instead of just, I did it. Oh, the result's bad. I'm not going to notice that part. When a flower doesn't bloom, you fix the environment in which it grows, not the flower. I like to equate good relationships with a carpet. You know, if you have a something negative that happens in a relationship, we tend to think, oh, let's just let it go. Time will heal it. And it seems to sort of, because, you know, you get back in habit. All we're really doing is becoming distracted from it, because next time something similar happens, we're like, there's two things on, no, there's three, you know, everything comes into horrible focus. We see all the things, even though we forget them in between. And so what we strive for in our family is clean relationships. If there's negative feelings, we care about each other more than we care about our carpet. And we figure it out. We'll get the solvents out. We'll sometimes, usually it can be kind of quick because we're used to it, but sometimes it takes hours. My 3 daughters had something to tell me, and I was defensive, and I meant well, and they wanted to just say, forget it, you know, we won't give you feedback because you just have a hard time with feedback. I'm like, no, stick with me, please, there's something to be learned here. I know it because you guys see it. Just stick with me until I can see it. And we'll say things in different ways until finally the light bulb goes on. And I'll be like, and then something's learned. So for the best relationship results, clean up negative feelings as quickly and thoroughly as you would clean up pomegranate juice spilled on your carpet. When I work with clients, I just say, you know, how do you feel about it? Good. How do you feel about it? Good. And I can see in their body language there's something off. I'm like, you seem like there's something there. Well, I feel okay, but it would hurt my feelings. We're not done. You gotta satisfy your soul, afflicted soul, so to speak. And then we found a way to make a mindset shift to where he didn't feel bad, and then move forward happy.
How do you approach this where it seems like you're rubbing salt in the wound?
You know, sometimes you can ask the person. What I like to do is if I have to feel like I have hard feedback to give, like my son one time I said, I have some things I'd like to share with you. It would probably take 7 minutes, but it could be really painful. Are you willing to hear it? And then and that moment of decision makes him more open to what I'm going to say. And the more specificity you put into it, the more they can make a good decision. You know? And sometimes people won't take feedback. Like one time, it took maybe 6, 7, 8 months before this person was ready, but they eventually did. So that's why, rather than pushing it, you ask and you respect whatever it is they're telling you, and then you keep inviting. So if I were to boil down becoming one, I would say the best gift you can give your fellow man is to work through every problem, large and small, until both parties are happy and at peace. You good? You good? Yeah, I'm good. And it's clean, and your relationship stays high. It doesn't start slipping. And the last one is making a shift from fair to unfair. When we learn new things, we correct others. We see it everywhere. My daughter said, there's this car I think you'd be really cute in, you know. And I looked it up online, and I I didn't even know that existed. Was it Tucson or something? And I looked at it, I saw it in different colors. Well, guess what? Next day, I saw it when I got my hair done. I saw it at the church. I saw it everywhere. I saw it at the stoplight. And so when we learn these things, our tendency is to say, oh, I see it. I see it. I see it. Let me help you. instead of letting them go. And that's unfair. It's admittedly unfair. But if we can shift to mastering ourselves, then we have the ability to teach by example, by modeling it. We're actually doing it. And so this is a really big pill to swallow. But look how it feels to try and change other people. Correcting, pushing, defending, explaining. So when you're focusing on someone else's behavior, even if you're right, even if you're 100% right, leads nowhere, still leads nowhere. Expenditure of time and energy remains or increases over time. Where if you go the unfair route, like he's just made a decision, not like I'm not going to do that unless you do that. He's having fun because he chose to do it. Working on your relationship skill and strength while letting others off the hook all the time and taking the leadership role. It leads to a greater, more enduring level of influence, more depth, more trust, more joy. The expenditure of time and energy lessens over time. That's how you get your time back. So here's the difference between fair and unfair. Courage is knowing it might hurt and doing it anyway. Stupidity is the same, and that's why life is hard. Doing something that's not going to work is hard, but doing something that will work is hard. They're both hard. They're both hard, but one gives you stuff back. This is what going solo, I call it going solo. This is what going solo looks like from the outside, and this is what it looks like from the inside. You're like, learning new ways to do things, a new language. It's a new language you're learning. Going solo is an excellent way to see how much you've been expecting of others and how little you've been expecting of yourself. This was an absolute shock to me. I'm like, holy cow, I did not know how much I was part of the problem between me and a couple of my kids. Once I started working only on myself and let them go, they flipped. They were different kids. It was incredible when I met. I did not know. It's very humbling. Okay, so now I'm just going to give you a couple of practical things. So we've got the root system, we've got the trunk. If we get those paradigms right, we're going to get good fruit. But these are just some how-tos. And so this comes from a story of a little boy that said, "Mommy, when you talk to me that way, it makes me want to fly." And that's our goal. We want to make people feel like they can fly. They want to fly. And so this is the one skill that I'll teach you is reframe using more positive, forward-facing words. So when we look at words, we can pick out without any schooling which of those are negative and which of those are positive. Sad, weak, successful. And the reason why is because there's an imprint, an energetic imprint. Some of the words, the negative words, don't have the spirit of the word in them because they have a discouraging effect, which is, we don't want to discourage people. And so we use words, "You're so irresponsible." Well, that doesn't have encouragement in it, which the Lord would encourage us. It has discouragement. And so we can see this at games. We go to a game. If we want to demoralize the other team so they lose, "You're playing terrible," and you're the ref, we're fine if the ref makes bad calls in our advantage and really mad if they make the other person's advantage. So this is what we want to try and do in our relationships and in our homes, is how can I encourage? The negative words feel like boulders to the soul. They weigh me down. One executive told me, he had a teacher that said, "You're not very good in math. You're not very good in math." Those 6 words haunted him clear up through his master's degree. He had to fight against this. And our words make just such huge impact. "Hey, you can do it. You will get this because you're smart." That would be like a boost, helping him accomplish what we wanted to accomplish. We know this when we see motivational speakers. They know how to use words to make their audiences feel a certain way, right? And so if I like to say, if motivational speakers spoke to their audiences like most of us speak to our kids, no one would come, no one would be helped. So here's the negativity trap that gets in the way. That this is the lie. I can correct a negative with a negative. If one negative doesn't work, more will. It's like cleaning mud with mud. These words are muddy. We're trying to see something muddy and clean it. So this is how it works. That was rude. Didn't work. That was rude. We put a little more energy behind it. That didn't work. After a while, you're so rude. You start to label and generalize. That didn't work. Oh my gosh, you're so rude and critical, I can hardly stand being around you. The negative is never going to work. It's like turning off darkness with darkness. It just doesn't work. Are we accidentally, well-meaningly believing we can discourage others into better behavior? Yes. This for decades, you guys. So the goal is to convert negatively framed thoughts into positively framed speech. So you're so irresponsible. It's like, how could I say this? You know, it's specific. There's a lot of different skills you could employ. But what is it you want? That's what you have to figure out. What exactly do I want? One small thing. What do I want to see? When I mentor people, they say they only want to talk about what they don't want. I'll say, well, what do you want? I don't know. That's the problem. We don't know what we want. We only know what we don't want. So we have to figure it out, delineate it, be able to speak it to get it. Well, let's get that. Okay, so then, this is the last skill I'll teach. I call it the retake. So of course we're going to have negatively framed speech that comes out later because we've got a super highway in our mind. And Stephen Covey used to say, stimulus response, put a space in there. Well, I couldn't do it. I was so stressed, I was so down, low, I failed to the point where I thought my responses came out like vomit. It was beyond my ability to stop them. But you can put the space after. It's a really great way to repent. You know, you do it wrong, but you can do it right after. So just like in a movie, you know, a movie, our life is infinitely more important than a movie, right? But in movies, a director would never just say, that was a bad scene, oh well, let's just keep going with the movie. But we can do a retake in our life. We can kind of just totally lose it with someone and just say, come on. And recalibrate our energy and do it again as the person we want to be. It's as simple as that. And when we do that, we're creating. We're creating new patterns. We're taking a pathway. I equate it to taking a pathway in the weeds. You know, if we go once, you really can't tell where we've been. If we go twice, 3 times, pretty soon we can see a little path. Pretty soon it becomes the road. And so if we do these retakes, it's teaching people it's okay to make mistakes. It's teaching people we're making the mistakes with. It's okay, but let me fix it. Let me do better. And then pretty soon, when we're in that stressful situation, our brain can see, oh, there's a path. And we can do something different. So, loving people is really hard. But if you look up to the Lord's face and say, yes, Lord, whatever it costs, at that moment He'll flood your life with His presence and power. Honestly, I don't think we can become a Zion people without being hand in hand with the Lord on this. Every effort we make, He'll come in and boost it. He will boost every effort we make. And so, that's it. That's all I have to share.
Thank you.
So this is just, if anyone's interested in the book, I've got 20% off, coupon code, Sisters SOL, Sisters of Liberty, through Labor Day, and this will teach and expound on everything that I've shared with you today. I really, really appreciate this opportunity to be here and to share this with you. It's a lot of information, I know, but thank you. And I'd like to just say these things in the name of my Savior, Jesus Christ, amen.
Thank you.
Thank you. have any questions.
I just wanted to add a testimonial. One of my jobs at the temple is teaching training. So I have to take people that are screwing up and I have to teach them how to do it the right way. And the Holy Ghost enters into it a lot.
Yeah.
And I think that if we approach everything with this in mind, it's much like giving correction to your coworkers in the temple, because it's a volunteer army. They don't have to be there.
Are you saying it comes more naturally because they're volunteers?
No, I'm saying that it's harder because you can't say, well, you're fired.
Oh.
You're doing that wrong.
Yeah, and the reward is when you correct them and they come back and they thank you. And that's kind of the same, it's a volunteer church, it's a volunteer army, and we need to remember that we're all here and we're all in the same boat. And to correct with kindness, sometimes you got to pause and you got to listen. What's the Spirit telling me to say right now? Sometimes it's saying, don't say anything.
Yes.
But when you come back and a month later you see that person and they give you a big smile and they thank you, and that's when the reward comes back, and this all really hit home.
My son, with the hard feedback I gave him, it probably took 6-8 months, but I heard him say, Mom, if it weren't for you, I would be this way. It was hard, really hard, but he could feel my love through it. That was the new me. The old me was not like that. The old me was disappointed, disappointed, quick, authoritative, and like I said, just pushed him away. But I had to wait some time to have him recognize that. We were still very close in between time, but he actually appreciated.
I have 2 questions.
She has 2 questions.
Oh,
Where do we go to purchase the book, and what was the code?
The code is SOL, Sisters of Liberty.